Bitcoin is cooling down a little bit. We had obviously some selling as it approached the major $100,000 milestone. People are taking profits, and that's normal. Altcoins actually are starting to pick up steam. We have some of our favorites that are performing really, really well. And so now we have kind of this interim time where people are sort of catching their breath a little bit. We thought it would be a great idea to revisit our core principles in terms of our investment philosophy and check in to see how some of our favorite investments and projects have been doing given all the recent activity in the market. We are very proud of our investment philosophy. It's helped many people, myself included, by the way, at least keep up with or surpass the bear market. And now that we're in the bull market, obviously things are good. And this is actually the second video in this series of portfolio analysis, a look at our philosophy. If you haven't seen that first video, I will include it in the description below. But this is officially now part 2, in which we're looking at and we're considering all 5 philosophical pillars of our investment strategy into altcoins and the broader cryptocurrency market. Welcome to the channel. My name is Maddie, and this is Altcoin Buzz. I wish you all the best of luck if you choose to invest. I can show you kind of what I'm doing behind the scenes, and I can give you options. You can choose to heed that advice or not. It's up to you, but none of it is officially financial or investment advice. I am not a financial or investment advisor. So again, remember that this video, by extension, is not official financial or investment advice. So I want to quickly review pillars 1 and 2 of our investment philosophy and strategy that we outlined in this video that's playing now. Again, check that one out if you haven't already. But just a brief recap here. We broke down specifically why you probably do need to have at least some of your capital in Bitcoin and ETH in particular, but also other large caps and then strategic mid caps and small caps. That way you're diversified by market size, right? You have projects of every size. We also considered what to invest, and that actually pairs well with pillar number 4. We're going to get to that later in this video, but this is where we consider proper investment size in terms of the amount of capital that you're allocating. And then also how much you should be in long-term positions like Bitcoin versus more short-term positions where you're, for example, taking advantage of specific market conditions. A quick example that comes to mind is meme coins. You're probably not going to hold BTC and the latest whatever meme coin for the same amount of time, right? They have different time horizons. And this strategy has worked for us unequivocally. If we take a look at this kind of diversified approach and we consider the returns, well, Bitcoin has a 240% ROI, Peak, that's PEAQ, 340% ROI, Pendle, 430%, and SUI, SUI, 323%. And this isn't anything revolutionary. Most people will tell you that a mix of both longer term and shorter term positions is vital toward a healthy portfolio. And so before we continue into this video, if you have not already done so, please take a look at video number 1. Only then should you move on to pillar number 3. That's what we're going to talk about now, and that is specifically the question of when to invest. Now, of course, we're talking about when to buy and when to sell when we ask this question. For anything really that's not a long-term hold, we recommend that when a token doubles, you probably should take some profit at that point. Take some money off the table. Book at least some profits. This is something that I have failed to do in the past, and I've had to learn that lesson, just personally speaking, and candidly, kind of the hard way, to be honest. It is important to always take profits. You're never going to lose if you regularly take profits. And a solid, but probably some would say conservative approach is also to sell half when it doubles. The math here on this means that when you sell half, you recoup your original investment. You can plug any numbers in here, but here's some quick math to illustrate the point. The more aggressive you are, and the more you think the story of a given token has stayed the same or perhaps even improved, then the more you can leave in order to continue and then obviously, hopefully continue to profit as well. Our general recommendation though is to sell at least 10%, hopefully at least 20% in order to take some of your original investment back. Take those profits when you can. So that's a best practice in terms of when to sell. When to buy is a little bit more complicated. It all comes down to signals. And one signal that we do look for is technical analysis. When a token bounces up off a strong support level, for example, that usually is, most of the time, a pretty good time to buy. Another signal that we use is our projected market cap tool. More on what this is in just a second, but when it presents a good value on a quality project, that's a good time to buy. A shorter term signal that we use is when a great project, so that's one that we like, that we recommend, we've researched, we may already have a position in it already, when that kind of a project drops 15, 20%, in a rather short period of time for no good reason, at least no reason that corresponds or correlates with its activities as a project. Maybe it's dragged down by the rest of the market, for example, but there's nothing news or project specific related to it, like a hack. It's just kind of a victim of the rest of the market. That is a buying opportunity. And you can consider that same project that hasn't changed for the sake of argument. It's just on sale effectively. And there are other signals to consider here. If you want more detail and an exhaustive list of everything that we use, you may want to check out our alpha group chats and research. That brings us to pillar number 4, which asks the question, how much to invest? Another way to look at this question is to ask, how much do you want to risk? So as you can see, the perspective changes there, and depending on which question you're asking, you may not come to the same conclusion as far as the number that you're comfortable with. Let's take one example here. Professional traders all over the world in things like stocks, currencies, commodities, and even crypto are probably likely to follow the 2% rule. This is an ultra simplified risk management strategy. And the idea here is that one really bad choice, let's say a project that bombs, or even one that's a straight up rug pull, if you have one of these in your portfolio, it does not kill the rest of your investments, right? It's only 2%. Maybe that's happened to you before. It's happened to me, honestly. And probably the more you've been in crypto, the more likely it is that it's happened to you. I'm sure you've heard stories about it. It's all over Crypto X when it does happen. One rug pull has the potential to kill your portfolio if, of course, it represents a massive chunk or a massive fraction of that portfolio. But it doesn't have to. And if you're going after something that's a little bit riskier in the first place to begin with, then the 2% rule is something to keep in mind. On somewhat of the flip side, though, just to consider this, we generally recommend healthy concentrations, which is actually the opposite of diversification when it comes to large caps. We have a little bit of a micro sailor strategy here or philosophy. If you have up to 30%, 40%, even 50% of your portfolio in just the top projects, then that is probably good. And you're probably doing fine in terms of Bitcoin. And again, the large caps out there, because really, if you have those kinds of allocations in BTC, and ETH, that's good. So the 2% rule that I just mentioned a moment ago doesn't apply here. You can kind of apply that to the smaller cap, more high risk projects. But just in the same way that Bitcoin leads to alt season eventually, the way capital cascades down, we do have some recommendations with that in mind. Number 1, as mentioned in pillar number 3, take some profits. And I want to keep repeating that. It is important to take profits. We do often forget. Take some of those profits on your trades, and then you can route them into other positions like your favorite, for example, AI small cap or RWA, real world assets mid cap. This does help to keep your portfolio healthy and strong, and you can pivot from a position of strength to, let's say, another asset that's undervalued. Taking profits works great in this regards. Number 2, use dollar cost averaging. You do not have to invest all of your capital in one lump sum. Time in the market always beats trying to time the market. You get your money in a disciplined, automated, emotionless way. As long as you're allocating into strong projects, DCAing is always the way to go. Also, you may want to consider rebalancing your portfolio if, for example, you have some wildly profitable positions and some very unprofitable ones by contrast. Add to the positions where the story is still strong, and don't be afraid to cut losses if the story or the narrative changes. We also very much like to use projected market cap. This is where we look at a market cap that we think is realistic for the project. So check out Bitcoin, for example. And I'll ask the question, do you think it could go to $2.8 trillion in this cycle? That's about $1 trillion more than where we stand today. Yeah, certainly I think that's possible. And that would be a little bit less than a 2x. But if you think about it this way, if you frame your thought experiments hypothetically this way, and then relate that to your investments, it gives you a pretty good idea of, for example, if we're buying high or low based on the project's history and current pricing. It's a tool that has worked for us. It's allowed us to kind of tip the balance in terms of our decisions sometimes. And again, assuming all your research and your diligence is in place, it's probably something that can work for you as well. And finally, pillar number 5 here, why we invest. And here it's kind of a combination of what your philosophy is and what your goals are. So this is going to become subjective. Our philosophy with Alpha is simply defined as predicting upcoming narratives with precision. And to the team's credit, we've been very early to some of them, like AI, for example, artificial intelligence, and even earlier to ones like gaming, which have not fully recovered yet. But then again, that's also a space that has not fully matured and whose best days are ahead, certainly. As far as goals go, getting rich should not be a goal. A goal is something that needs to be more specific and measurable. Like, for example, $2 million in portfolio value so that you can retire. That is a goal. Or maybe you want your portfolio to hit, let's say, $300,000. That way you can cash at least some out. You can buy a house or at least put a down payment on one, some land, whatever. You want to acquire something. That may be a goal that motivates you as well. Do not let Crypto X fool you into thinking that you have to make $5 million by next week or nothing at all, or you're a failure otherwise. That's not the case. Your goals are your goals. They're yours alone. Do not follow the rest of the nonsense and tune out some of the noise. But it is key that you have your goals, whatever they may be, and that you account for these goals in how you manage your portfolio and take profits. Stick to your strategy. And if you aren't working towards a goal in terms of that strategy with your investments, what's the point, right? Set your goals, define them clearly, and use them to your advantage. And most importantly, stick to them.